everybody, Basilray here, rocking the Scully because it's still snowing here in mid-April in Minnesota. Rocking my weekend t-shirt. Vape Bash is going on. Clearly, from looking at what's behind me, I am stuck at home. What are you going to do? So for those of you stuck at home, this will be a little Saturday goodie. It'll be up this afternoon. For those of you who went to Vape Bash and got an amp tank, here's some thoughts, and I'll give you a couple of tricks on how I set it up. And we'll go from there. So right now I've got the amp tank from AvidVaper set up 3 mil mode, 13 watts going to a 1.5 ohm bridgeless 510 here on the DNA 20D mod from Man Cave Mods. Let me give you a quick peek at the performance. I'm really enjoying the way that this delivers liquid to the atomizer, paired up with a device that delivers great consistent power, and you're going to be rocking and rolling. So the idea here is that we're going back to traditional atomizers, which is where a good subset of the enthusiast vapor probably started, especially if you've been vaping for a couple of years. You may have started with cartos, gone to addies. You may have started with addies, gone to cartos. Now you may be using things like the Kanger Pro tank, more of the clearomizer, silica wick style. You may be using stuff like the RSST, stainless steel mesh, but there's still a lot of people that really enjoy the atomizer experience. It's kind of hard to beat in some ways. So the difference here between, a regular run-of-the-mill carto tank and this is that we're going back to the atomizer and we're delivering liquid proportionally to the way we're vaping, assuming that you're using it, of course, in automatic mode. The other option is that you can use it just in manual mode, and you choke it off from the carburetor hole here, and you take a controlled drag, and you deliver liquid to your heating element inside your atomizer. So let's do this. Let's not dick around any further. Let's go down to a green towel on top of my desk and take a look. So here is everything you get with the complete amp kit. Let me adjust this light a little bit. There we are, that's better. So when you get the kit, you get the amp tank. I've got the 3 mil glass on here. You get the drip tip extender. So this is for using a regular size atomizer and you want to use 5 mil mode. So it simply fits into the end of your atomizer and allows you to stick any 510 901 compatible drip tip in top. Then you get the 5 mil glass tank body. Both of these are fused quartz with nicely polished ends. So they should be fairly durable, and you shouldn't have any significant issues there. I certainly wouldn't think. Granted, if you drop this on cement, I know from experience with other Genesis stuff, these will shatter and break on you, so don't drop them. And here is the amp tank itself. So let me kind of give this a quick dry here. A little bit of leakage back out from whipping it around, getting this set up. So here you can see the carburetor hole. This is really where your air intake is. The bottom doesn't look sealed, but it is essentially sealed. Each one of these is numbered. So if I were to flip this around, you can see this is black number 49. So in setting this up, what I tend to do, once I get it set up and using it and I need to refill it, I will hold this from the drip tip end. I can do this because the drip tip that I have in here fits so snugly that the atomizer can't spin around it. From there, what I'll do is simply hold this and start unscrewing the entire bottom section, and this will come off. So once it gets to the point where it's off the atomizer, make sure you kind of keep a little bit of a grip on the glass. It tends to want to separate when you're taking it apart, and you can simply pop it off from here, refill it, pop it back together, and again I kind of do the same thing in reverse where I just hold it, spin it, and get it set up. So what we'll do here is let me get a bottle of liquid. Will this stand up? Will this stand up? Jackpot. And let me dump this out and we'll kind of start over. So if, we'll see how carefully I can pour this back into a bottle. Bloop, 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 bloop. That actually worked out much better than I expected. So we're kind of getting ready to set up here. The first thing that I usually will do, because I'm using this drip tip that seals so tightly, I will go ahead and insert that and start here. The other nice thing about the drip tip that I'm using, and this is an Atomizer drip tip, the man that brings you the steam machine, is it's got a little lip around the edge. So you can kind of see there's a bit of a lip here. Because of that, it prevents it from going any farther than I want it to into the tank. So I'll slowly insert it and give it a little spin. Of course, if you were doing this for the first time, you'd want to dab up your O-rings in that top cap with some e-liquid. And I'll get it set here. From there, what I'll actually do when I first go to fill this up is to just put it all together. Then I'll put about 5 or 6 drops here into the drip tip, just get it into the atomizer, put it on a mod, and make sure that it's vaping how I want it to vape. So do you have enough liquid in? Is it dry hitting already? If it is, obviously you're going to put some more liquid in. If it's too much, you'll want to maybe invert it, get a couple of drops out. So once I know that I've got it set up how I want and it's vaping properly, and again, I've got it set up here in the tank mode, I will go ahead and remove the bottom cap. Take it, fill it, put the bottom cap on, and I'm good to go from there. The only difference here really in the 5 mil mode is that you will want to, if you're not using a long barreled atomizer, such as maybe a long barrel HH357, is you'll want to start with the drip tip extender and get this fitted in here. And again, you want to be careful. This is probably not the best way to insert this. If you have a drip tip that you like to use that will fit through a standard kind of drip tip opening or cartomizer end opening, you will want to use that. What I am really not a fan of doing is having to carry around a separate drip tip for, you know, getting cartomizers out of tanks to fill them, those sorts of things. So I tend to find ways around that. Let me just grab this here and carefully, oh, maybe not carefully. I was going to say pop this out, but it does not want to come out now, which is swell. So we will do this. Get out. All right, so that's kind of the difference, is that in 5 mil mode, if you're using a regular atomizer, a good chunk of your tank is going to consist of this. The downfall, I think, to using a regular atomizer with this is that the drip tip extender here doesn't fit tight enough, in my experience, in a regular 510 atomizer to give you a nice, solid, sturdy feel, and to be able to do what I do in 3 mil mode, which is use a drip tip like this that has a flanged top and be able to simply spin it. And this it physically can't go inside here, so it's always going to hold me in place. One thing I've also noticed about using it in 5 mil mode is that it starts to feel a little bit wobbly. You can kind of see it's got a little bit of a wiggle and wobble to it. And I just sometimes feel like if I look at it wrong, the whole thing's just going to come apart. If you are using a drip tip, especially one that might fit a little bit more snug around the top, maybe fits just inside the atomizer and gives you a real tight grip on the top cap, you never want to pull from the drip tip, or you risk the cap coming right off with it, and you've got 3 to 5 mils potentially of e-liquid spilled around. So let me just wipe this up from whipping it around here. It's a little bit wet. So let's go ahead and just put this back together, and we're going to kind of do it in reverse order here. So let me go ahead and grab a bottle of e-liquid. So this is a 50-50 blend of DIY stuff that I whip up on occasion. It's actually a dragon fruit milkshake. So when you fill this, you want to fill it to right about the, top edge of the connector. That's where you fill it. You want to make sure you leave some room. Don't overfill this. Otherwise, when you go to put the cap in here, 1, you'll shoot juice everywhere. 2, you will not have enough room to get it potentially seated correctly. So from here, it's basically, I just hold from the drip tip because my drip tip fits so snug that I can screw the cap shut. And now we're ready to rock and roll here with the amp tank. So in using this in automatic feed mode, it's going to be a little bit different for every atomizer. Essentially what you do, again, for me, I just grab it from the drip tip and I unscrew the atomizer, and what that does is starts to unscrew it from the base here. You can see the more I unscrew it, the more separation we're going to get here. And that gives liquid more access to the air intake holes that are naturally on the threaded connector of a 510 atomizer. So from there, it's a matter of getting it adjusted to where the liquid flow is going to be optimal for A, the wattage that you're vaping, and B, the viscosity of the liquid you're using. So this is a 50-50 blend. It's not terribly thick, so I don't want to open this a ton. What you're going to want to also use is a primed puff here. So you cover the carburetor hole, which is right here. This is where your air intake comes from, and you take a short, sharp suck through the drip tip or mouthpiece, whatever you might be using. And kind of what I do is kind of as I'm dragging, I let go. And you'll be able to feel, if you're creating a vacuum seal tight enough here with the tank, when you've got it all together, you'll feel liquid and you'll hear liquid start to pull into the atomizer. From here, it's a matter of getting it to do something quite similar when you open this up based on how strong you take a drag and, again, the viscosity of your liquid. For thicker liquids, you're most likely going to need to open this a bit more. And for thinner liquids, you'll want to have it closed a bit more. If your liquid is thin enough, I would surmise that you can just simply set it up, have it sealed off, and you'll probably get a decent feed. Some people don't even want to mess with automatic feeding, and they'll use manual feeding. Now, you can see one of the things here from kind of whipping this around and from screwing and unscrewing the atomizer, I'm starting to get some leakage here out of the carburetor hole. This is common, and this typically means you have more liquid than the atomizer can hold inside of it, and it's got nowhere to go but back down here out where your air comes in. So from here, what you would want to do is, again, take a short, sharp drag without firing it, most likely. Maybe you want to fire it. And that will suck liquid back from the base into the atomizer. You're going to want to close it off when you get to this point. So if you have liquid leaking out of the carburetor, close off your atomizer completely, drag this liquid back into the bottom of the atomizer, and continue from there. If you get to that point, however far open you had it was probably too much. Now, if you've been doing like I've been doing and tipping this around a bunch, that's going to lead to excess liquid coming out of your carburetor hole. And it's really kind of a marriage of getting it to the right spot here for the liquid you're using and the way that you vape so that this doesn't happen. When you get to that spot, you can generally leave this unattended for days and it's not going to leak. I left it overnight, no leaks several times. So it's just a matter of getting it dialed in. This is going to be the biggest point of frustration for people. Generally speaking, start with small increments of a rotation here. So when you go to unscrew this, start with maybe a quarter of a turn. Vape on it a bit. Are you getting liquid into the atomizer when you vape? No? Give it a little help. Give it a little primer puff while tapping on the carb. If you don't feel any liquid coming in when you're just kind of dragging while you tap and untap or cover and uncover the carburetor hole, you don't have it open enough. Open it maybe another quarter of a turn. Try it again. You want to get this to the point where when you're taking a drag, it is giving you just enough liquid to keep that coil wet without you having to use the carburetor. Of course, there's nothing wrong with using the carburetor if you prefer to do it that way. Some people may do it that way and never use the carburetor. It really comes down at that point to personal preference and what you like to do, how you like to do it. So, this is how I set it up, how I use it. I'm enjoying it. It's working really well for me. There is certainly a learning curve here, so don't throw this away if after the first 3 to 7 days you still are getting leaks out the carburetor hole, you're getting inconsistent hits. It's just a matter of getting this fine-tuned. Once you do that and you have it fine-tuned and you know how you want it to work, it's really easy to get back to that point. For me, it's about a half of a turn here, just a little past half of a turn, with this atomizer and this liquid, and I'm going to be ready to rock. Let's go up top. I'll take a nice big puff to start, and we'll show you. So there you have it. Freshly filled amp tank. Works wonderfully. Really enjoying it. Something that I didn't show you how to do because I haven't had very good results in doing that is using a 306 atomizer. So here's a 306 in kind of one of these, extended sized drip tips. This will fit nice and neat in there. I haven't had very good success using it. What you're going to want to make sure you do, especially if you're going to use a 306, maybe an IO6, is that you have a drip tip that's going to seal on here quite snug. Because you don't want something that's going to easily come off and be real loosey-goosey, or it's simply just going to keep falling off. So I haven't had very good success with the 306. I'm sure some have, and it is billed as working with the 306 because it does, but I've never been able to get it to feed consistently, which is something that I can do quite easily with a 510 atomizer as I have set up right here. So price point here, $120 for just the tank with either the 3 or 5 mil sleeve, $135 for the full kit, which gives you everything I showed you. That's what I purchased. So you get the 3 mil sleeve, the 5 mil sleeve, and the drip tip adapter, and then obviously, both the tank ends. So for my money, this is a good buy. I like using atomizers a lot. I like the longevity, I like the simplicity, and I love the performance of using one versus using a cartomizer. Always have, and I kind of use cartomizers by choice. Not to say that I will never use a traditional filler-based cartomizer again. As an example, I really, really like the 510 Fusions from AvidVaper right now. So, I'm using those in an XL cartomizer tank pretty much all the time just as a change of pace. But for those of you, and there are lots of people who have said this is way too expensive, I guess kind of the challenge is to go out, make an amp tank or make an atomizer tank that works this well and this consistently, and put it to market and sell it for less, and then you've got an argument. Until you've done that, it's a little hard to, bark about $100 price point for something that works this well. So again, 1.5 ohm atomizer, 13 watts, that's 4.6 volts to 1.5 ohm atomizer. I don't get any dry hits. I'm not having to use the carburetor terribly often. Maybe if I really vape a lot, I might have to give it just a quick tap. What I generally do is I kind of just tap and untap as I'm dragging. If you don't hear that sound of liquid moving when you're doing that, you don't have your feed optimized. This is kind of the test for me. So when you're doing this and just tapping and untapping, if you don't hear liquid, you want to open it up just a little bit more, and you want to keep moving it in tiny increments until you get it opened up enough that it kind of sounds like this. So this is kind of how I learned to set it up. When you hear that kind of slight gurgle, you know you're doing all right. So there you have it. That is the amp tank from AvidVaper. I'm Basilray, rocking a Scully because it's cold and my weekend shirt because it's the weekend. Enjoy the video. Go out, check out the amp tank. They're not in stock right now. I'm sure their stock is probably tied up at Vape Bash. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe a couple come back on the site here real soon, or the next run comes out in the near future. Until next time, please, by all means, feel free to hit me up on the Basil phone, 612-293-6405. Shoot me a text, leave me a voicemail. I'll get back around to you. I promise, I always do. But as always, until next time, please, take care.